Hi everyone, my name is Alyssa Davis. I'm an assistant programmer here at Outfest. I am so excited that if you're joining us right now, you probably just saw our S.O.S. Silvers on Screen Shorts block. These are all my beautiful filmmakers. Say hi everybody. We're all just boxes at this moment in time, but now I'm gonna get the Q&A started. And I'm going to start off with the Starr Sisters, co-directed by Beth Einhorn and Bridie Elliott.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
This is such a fun short. And I mean, Randa and Patty are just so great. How did you come to know them? How did you meet them? Where did this collaboration start?
Beth.
Okay. I met them at a comedy club. I had gone to see someone perform and it was really dark, and I sat down and I heard, of course the tall person has to sit in front of us. And I was like, oh my God, I think that's me. I'm 5'10". So anyway, so I turned around and in the dark were these two women, and I was like, okay, I'll move, but you have to tell me who you are, like what's going on here. And so they gave me their card, and one thing led to another, and I ended up putting them in a little short I was doing. And then they were doing a performance, a spoken word performance of like 7 minutes, and I thought Bridie would be interested in it. So I asked her, I said, come see these women, and we went and saw them, and on the way home we thought, wow, their stories should be told.
That's awesome. And have you and Bridie worked together before, previously, co-directing?
Not co-directing. We've written together before, more comedy stuff, but never in a documentary capacity. So this was the first time. It was really fun.
And how did you decide, well, I'm curious, how many hours of footage you had of them? Like, how did you decide what to include, what to cut out? Like, I could have just sat there listening to them forever. So I don't know how y'all made that decision.
It was really hard. They lived many lives. So we had to take out a lot of really good, juicy life story stuff. But when it came down to it, we kind of kept like working off the thesis that, they're having like their childhood in adulthood, and we want to kind of keep it swirling around that premise. But there's definitely so much more to them.
Was there anything that wasn't like they didn't want to share anything? I mean, of course, I have to mention we're Outfest, so Randa kind of shares her past being married to a husband, and she says like I was out before it was hip or something like that. Like, and they share much more painful experiences too. But was anything like they didn't want to talk about?
No, I think that they were completely open to sharing their life, and they're sisters, and people think that they're twins, but they're not.
Oh, and they aren't. I thought they were.
No, I know, that's what everybody thinks. And one was married for 25 years in a shitty marriage. And then the other one was lesbian. And she says something like, I was out before it was popular or something like that. And it's anyway, and then they decided 30 years ago to move in together. And so now they're like living this childhood they never had.
They are
they didn't, nothing was off limits, right, Brian?
No, there was a lot that's not in it.
Well, they are amazing, and they totally just inspired me to like have fun with my life. And like, I mean, I don't know. It's just really cool how you captured them, and I thank you so much for putting their story on film.
Yeah, it's the one thing I just want to say is that, it's like people can have this really dark childhood, but it doesn't really define who you are. And then you choose that. That's how that's what you choose in life. And I think that's what's hopeful.
Definitely.
Yeah. They say it's like, it's very easy to be depressed. It's harder to have fun, and it's a life's journey. So, yeah.
Well, thank you again for sharing. They're just so awesome. I can't wait to see them hopefully in person one day at a spoken word performance. I'm going to move along to Strangers. I think we have a team here. Writer-director Jameson Pierce.
Yeah, hello.
Want to introduce your producer?
Yeah, Liam Hain is here. I'm in Melbourne and Liam's in Sydney. Hello.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. So this film is grapples with a lot. I am curious, what compelled you to shoot a film about, an elder lesbian or someone who's, exploring that identity of themselves, and then set it in a nursing home specifically.
Yeah, well, I started with a nursing home. I was doing a job proofreading research grant applications, and there was one about sexual STDs or STIs in nursing homes, and about sexual behaviour in nursing homes and how it was being controlled in Australia, and how they were creating policies to control it. And I just found that such an interesting premise, thinking about all of this sort of rampant sex in nursing homes. And I researched it from there and came across an anecdote of two women who had been ostensibly straight in their life, having this lesbian experience in a nursing home when they were both had dementia or Alzheimer's. And so I took it from there.
Yeah, I think that is interesting because, the dementia comes up in kind of issues around consent and, what is kind of appropriate at the age. It's almost like the nursing home staff is dictating what's appropriate for them. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was so interested in the idea that an illness could give rise to some other, even truer part of one's self. That it was only through this illness that, this sort of hidden or suppressed behaviour could come out. And I guess it was in that space that thinking about one person has been this way in their whole life, and then it's the nursing home and also the son and daughter of this woman who kind of are grappling around whether she should be forced to stay in this identity in which she's lived her life, or if they can allow and even encourage this later sort of coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I just, I think it's just interesting because, you think they're older adults, they have their own free will and ability to decide, but at a certain, I think the film kind of questions or the people around them maybe think they don't, but they know themselves and that they do.
And in a bit of a non-judgmental ways, in a bit of a non-judgmental way as well, which I think was what drew me to the script, was it does provide a bunch of different perspectives on this complex issue without kind of forcing the audience to think one way or the other about it.
Definitely. It is really complex, and I just wanted to give your editor credit and how you structured the script too, to kind of start with the women, go to the the experts and the children, and then come back to the women. I thought that was really powerful.
Thank you. And one question I wanted to keep there was, when does caring for someone mean taking away their autonomy? And is that ever true or not? That was a sort of question I just kept current.
Well, it's a really beautiful film. Liam, congrats, and congrats, Jameson. Next up, we have Akitsa Ramo. We have a whole team here. I don't know if the director, Miguel, would like to introduce everyone, or you can introduce yourself.
Sure. I think they could introduce themselves. I'm Miguel. I'm the writer-director.
Hi, my name's Luis Aldana. I'm the actor. I play Anthony, also the producer.
I'm Sal Lopez, and I play Salvador.
Thank you so much for being with us. So Miguel, as we kind of discussed right before this, Akitsa Ramo is the name of the small town they're in. I'm curious why you wanted to set this story in like a rural, indigenous village, and what that means for your main characters. It seems like there's some perceptions that the village townspeople might have of this relationship that the two had.
Akitsa Ramo is actually the town where I grew up in. So I went back to my hometown to shoot a film there. And it's interesting because what it means in the indigenous language, it means Akitsa is actually snake. And it says the serpent will be king. And I kept the name because in this case, Salvador, which happens to be the same similar name as Sal, who plays Salvador, he transforms this town by, being who he is and remaining who he is. And at the end of the film, you get a glimpse that the town is awakening. And then, in a spiritual context, a serpent always means shedding the past and new birth and awakening. So Luis and I toyed around with different titles and they just weren't meshing. And we thought this is just the perfect title to keep the name of the town and honor the town, and also the meaning of it we really loved.
Wow, that adds so much more meaning than I even realized to the film. And Luis and Sal, y'all play off of each other very well. I'm curious, what was that like, trying to build that tension together as actors, and then that release at the end? And Luis, your character is kind of keeping part of himself secret. What was that like, trying to play that?
I'll let Sal go first. Go ahead, Sal.
Oh, just, well, I belong to a theater company that we've been together for about 30 years, and both Miguel and Luis have been a part of that family as well. So we've worked together in the theater before. And actually, we also did a film that where Miguel, who's also a wonderful actor, was the lead in the film. And you should see that movie. What's it called? Cry Now.
Cry Now.
We have some very funny scenes between him and I in that movie. Totally different than this one. But so my point is that we've known each other for a long time, and it was very easy for us to rehearse and to create that kind of connection. Luis?
Yeah, and just for me, having piggyback on everything that Sal is saying, I've played with Sal on stage as well a couple of times, and so we had that sort of dialogue, that sort of unspoken understanding in terms of, as actors, but and just really the rehearsal component, I think, was a huge step for us. Miguel had us rehearse. We rehearsed at Sal's house a couple of times, and I think that really helped solidify what the work that we wanted to get across. We did it all in 3 days, so there wasn't a lot of time to spare. So
right. And
yeah.
Miguel, just last question. I'm just curious, what did your town think of you, filming the story of, gay love? Like, how, is the perception you were kind of hinting at the townspeople having maybe like a negative perception? Is that actually the perception of the town?
The town itself, I think, is much more accepting, and they all know who I am and who my parents are. So I didn't necessarily say it was a gay film, because we are in rural Mexico, and now that town is supportive. We don't know the surrounding towns, and homophobia is, massive in these small towns, and people don't know how to do it, that sometimes it may resort to violence. And I didn't want to put anybody at risk of word getting out. So we just said we were filming a film. After, when it started coming out and people read the synopsis and found out what it's about, we get emails left and right of people from the town saying, thank you for opening up a door. I can now talk to my godfather or my parents or this and that. So it's been really, really wonderful. And I do want to commend, I want to make a note, I want to commend on Luis and Sal for their, amazing work that they did. And Sal, actually, it was difficult because he's a chameleon as an actor, and the character is supposed to be about 20 years older. So it was just amazing. A couple times only, I had to remind him to walk a little slower, but he just really transformed into this character that is much older. And it was just, both of them are just wonderful in the film.
They are. Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad it's got
so
really good response in your town. Next film we have is Halwa. I think we have two co-directors here. Would you all like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Nirav Bhakta, and I'm in Houston, Texas.
Hi, I'm Gayatri, and I'm in Vancouver, Canada.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'd love to know what kind of compelled y'all to tell this story of an older South Asian woman who's kind of grappling with her past relationship and her current marriage. I mean, she's got so much going on interiorly. Like, is this someone that you thought of when writing the script? Like, oh, I know someone like this?
So the seed of the idea actually came from our lead actress, Vijaya Kumari, V. Kumari. And, she, Nirav and I had worked together on a short film many years prior. And And Nirav and her had kept in touch, and she'd been telling him over the years, they were both in the acting space. Nirav was both a filmmaker and an actor. And she was telling him about just how vanishingly small the pool of roles was for her as a South Asian woman in Hollywood. And from there, you know, Nirav and her started kind of brainstorming about what story they could tell that would be a bit richer than, you know, South Asian mom arranging her kid's marriage yet again. And he ended up bringing me into the fold and said that Vijaya had told him about a brief but abusive marriage that she'd been in. And, you know, we wanted to delve into that. Was she willing, and kind of discover some emotional truths there. So I'll let Nirav tell the next step of how it evolved.
Yeah, I mean, it literally started from that, just this idea of representation. And once Gayatri and I started collaborating, brainstorming, the idea then germinated from like technology and our parents that are so like Facebook Messenger and Facebook. It's like, it's the jam right now for everybody.
I love that you had the daughters create the mom's Facebook account. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah. Interesting enough, like Gayatri and I as filmmakers, the number one thing for us is to listen to our community, especially if we're trying to tell like a very specific story. And so we just started off from observing stories within our own communities and kind of noticing these like love stories that sprouted from Facebook messengers. One example was a village in India, a neighboring village in India. There was a person who had transitioned from female to male, who had then like years later reached out to somebody on Facebook Messenger that they had a crush on, and they connected, and then they eventually ran away and got married. And I thought, wow, that's so fascinating that Facebook has become this like back page, or, you know, underground conversation connecting device. So that was a factor into like the whole technology and whatnot. And another element that I kind of got inspiration was when I visited India, my grandmother's not able to like go beyond her like doorsteps basically, and like across this little river bank is like another old house, and that's where her best friend lives, and they cannot like see each other. Like the only way they see each other is they step outside onto their little front doorways, and they'll just like look at each other. And I was like, wow, what is that connection, right? And then how does that connection evolve into technology?
Yeah.
So that's where that love story started.
Well, y'all beautifully capture it. I mean, so many, difficult themes, loneliness, emotional abuse, physical abuse. I mean, the whole gamut, and y'all just make it so beautiful. And just, and your lead, again, commending her. She's just great. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Naomi Replansky at 100. Our director, Megan Broston, I believe, is here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. Actually, this is your second time at Outfest, I believe. You had, your third time. Okay. Last year, I saw you with the Archivettes, which I thought was amazing documentary about the lesbian archives. Is that in Brooklyn, New York?
It is, yes.
Yeah, and I feel like this kind of maybe goes with it. Like I personally had never heard of the poet Naomi Replansky before, and I'm like, wow, I feel like I should know more about her. Did you kind of see that connection when you were deciding to go to your next film and it be about Naomi?
Yeah, so actually Joan Nessel, who co-founded the Lesbian Archives, lives in Melbourne, Australia. And when I went to visit her to film, she couldn't stop talking about Naomi and like how incredible Naomi was. And at the time, Naomi was turning 100, and it was such a milestone. And so I decided that initially I was interested in following Naomi and her partner, who live in the same apartment building but on different floors.
Oh.
But actually they were having more health issues, and so ultimately I felt like, when Naomi reads her poetry, she feels so much younger than she is. So I decided to try to film her in a studio just based on some of the limitations we were experiencing.
I was curious about that. You know, she's in this, you know, she's spotlit, has this black background, and I'm not sure if your cinematographer was able to make it on, but I was just curious about the way you filmed her. She's in these extreme close-ups. Was that something you kind of discussed with her, or you just went with it?
Well, I think that knowing that we were going to be in a studio, I knew to make it interesting, we had to have a lot of cameras and try to create some of that. And I think just looking at Naomi, she's very joyous and she comes to life when she reads her poetry. And we wanted to try to focus on all these details, her hands, just, you know, you can see her age in her face, but again, there's that contrast of when she reads, she feels so much younger. And I should also mention, Naomi is currently living through the second pandemic in her lifetime. So if anyone needed some inspiration, I think that'll force me up when I'm having a hard time.
And did she decide what poems to read, or did you look through her work and decide what you wanted to highlight? I mean, I think she has one specifically about a woman, a love story she'd written to a woman.
I actually worked with her to choose a selection, but part of the thing of working with folks who are 100 years old is they may or may not remember those discussions. So when she came in, I remember, you know, asking her to read a few things, and she did, but she really wanted to read a ton of stuff. And at a certain point, I had to say, Naomi, you're so incredible, but we only have the studio for so many hours. Like, we have to start talking about your poetry. And she was like, I don't want to talk about it. I want to get through all of these poems. And so ultimately, I think I ended up having more choice in what ended up in the film than I had initially anticipated.
Well, now at 102, I imagine she's just continuing to read her poems all through this pandemic. Thank you so much for capturing her, and I hope more people get to know about her through your film. So thank you.
So much.
Next, I have The Happiness in Which I Live. I believe we have 3 people from that team, director Carlos Morales, and would the other 2 like to introduce themselves?
Carlos didn't make it, and we're just Daniel. He's the photographer, and I'm Claudia, the producer.
Sorry, I don't know why I thought Carlos was on for some reason. Perfect. So we have Daniel and Claudia. Thank you so much for, again, another amazing person you captured on film, Samantha. I'm so curious how you two were, well, first of all, were able to connect with Carlos and how he maybe found out about Samantha and decided that she was his subject for this short doc.
Do you want to go first, Claudia?
Yeah. Well, Carlos met Samantha in a festival, kind of something about the community, because she's trying to I don't know how to say it. She's trying to have an asylum for the people in the community.
Like a shelter, kind of?
Like a shelter, yeah. Mm-hmm. So Carlos was interested about how is, I mean, I don't know how to explain it. He was trying to figure it out, how was the idea for Samantha, I mean, how was the difficulties for her to try to do it and to help people. So when he started to talk with her, he realized that he didn't have a bad life. I mean, like, I don't know how
she's just so joyous and kind of, she lives her life to her fullest. And
yeah, well, she was really happy with a lot of things that he was, a lot of problems that he was trying to solve, but she never felt like down or sad, and he was like interested in to project that, to picture that.
And Daniel, how is filming her? Because she just comes off the screen, like her doing her makeup and her outfits, and but the whole time you're in her house, so it's so interesting and dynamic, but you're just in that one kind of location. What was that like shooting?
Yeah, it was kind of hard to film in her place because it's a really small place. We went for a scouting day one day before the shoot, and we discovered that she lived like in a maybe 40 square meter apartment, and it was really difficult to put the camera in either like one side. So, and she has this idea of projecting happiness every time, and in every second she wanted to project happiness. So it was time like by herself she chose what we could see. So it was kind of hard. Like maybe when she was napping, there's a small scene where she's sleeping with her feet up. I just stole that moment because she didn't want to be seen like in another way than being happy, and because she wants to project this happiness, this joyfulness everywhere.
That's interesting. So she kind of had that, and in a way, like not control, but she had her own idea of how she wanted to come off on the screen.
Yeah, exactly. And she has always been seen like that in other media or other, like in magazines or other things. She's always like happy and she's colorful and dances, and so it was kind of a tribute to her, this film, and to try to project like that you can be happy. I mean, she had some rough moments, but not as rough as like other people could be. Yeah. So it was kind of a good way of projecting this, I think.
Well, you do capture her so beautifully. The color just comes off the screen. She comes off the screen. Congratulations to the both of you and to Carlos. And I hope her story again lives on, and she just does her thing in Mexico City. So congratulations. Next and last, I think I have is the film Dated. Do we have writer performer Steve Chivers here?
Yeah.
Hi, did I say it correctly?
Shivers.
Shivers. There's like two ways to say it, and I said it the wrong way. So this is a really funny short, and of course the end revealing kind of like it's been live streaming this whole time. I would just love to know, has this ever happened to you? Do you know anyone this has happened to? It feels like it's a moment that has happened to someone before.
Maybe, but actually not to me. I mean, I just kind of, I don't know how I came up with the idea. This originated as a monologue at the Writers Guild. The LGBTQ plus committee there does a thing every year called the Gay Scene, which is just like an evening of scenes from screenplays and stuff. And I was like looking at my screenplays and like, I don't have a good gay scene. All right, I'm just gonna write something. And I just kind of sat down and started riffing on it. And you know, it got good response and people said, you should shoot this. And that for some reason took like a year to get around to it. But I had worked with a young film student, Zenon Samuels, who I had hired him to shoot something else. And then one of my actors had a death in the family. And I was like, okay, we're doing the monologue. And so he was great. And and he is also Australian. And we shot it at the end of December, right before his student visa expired and he had to go back. So
oh my gosh, okay.
A little crazy.
Well, how much of it is from the monologue you wrote and how much of it is improvised? Some of it feels really like you're just riffing with yourself.
It was pretty much all from the monologue. I actually cut it down somewhat for the film, but
okay. And
yeah.
What would you say? I mean, the whole concept is, you know, dating over 50, like, is this totally futile? You know, what would you say, like, you know, do you want to give some people over 50 hope that, you know, you can do online dating? Is that a thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I feel like two of my life passages were when I realized that I didn't have to pay someone to cut my hair anymore and I could just like take that thing and yeah. And the other was when guys started calling me daddy and I was like, oh, yeah, great. Okay. Yeah. Call me daddy. Sure. And so it's kind of, it's weird because it's like you're being objectified, but then it's like, fuck it. You know, it's like, that's how you meet somebody now. So I think the gay community has always been a little crazy this way. And, you know, like you have that and then someone else puts on their profile, like no fats, femmes are old, you know? And it's just like, it's interesting how the gay community in some ways is just like completely open about discriminating and excluding people.
Yeah.
So it's been, that's kind of one of the things I wanted to explore. And also just, you know, having moved to San Francisco when I was 19, and during the Briggs Initiative, and I joined this group called Gays Under 21, which was the first gay youth group in the country. And we were marching and protesting. And so it's like, you know, just a lot to look back on that I wanted to share.
Yeah, you fit it all in so well, you know, the insecurities with the humor, with the, you know, hard reality of, you know, what it was like to be gay in the 70s. Like, it all mixes so well together. So congratulations. And hopefully we get to see, you know, more of you online dating over 50.
Yeah, I'm hoping to turn into a web series. That's the next step.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank all my lovely SOS filmmakers and crew members and participants. We hope that you continue to enjoy the week of Outfest online. And I'd like to thank everyone so much and have a lovely Outfest.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.